Hey everybody, it's Zero Limits. I am Jay Kimmelman and I am joined by my co-host Tam Nguyen. And today we have a special guest, Scotty Scarano, with us. And I am getting an echo. I don't know why. I have something open, so I will come back to that. But welcome everybody. I am Jay Kimmelman. I am a Zero ambassador, a Zero enthusiast, and I want to throw it over to Tam to introduce herself.
Yeah, I'll do a quick introduction. But founder of Zero, former accountant, former software consultant, and also an AI enthusiast. But very excited to have Scott Scarano with us today. Scott, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself as well?
Yeah. I'll introduce myself and my alter ego. So my self, Scott Scarano. I am an EA. I think I'm still an EA. I have a tax and accounting firm, Paget in North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, um, and we use primarily Xero. It's the only thing we use at our firm. We grew our firm out of Xero. We're just about $2 million firm, using almost 98% of our clients are on Xero. My alter ego, I'm also a rapper. I'm an OKR is my rap name, OK Rapper. Um, I also have Accounting High that I do. If you've heard of Accounting High, if you're in this space, it's a podcast, YouTube channel for accountants, fun, cool stuff we do. We did a tournament this year, past couple of years, uh, during March Madness, if you've heard of that or seen that. So that's a quick intro.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Scott.
thank you,
Yeah, so
Scott.
I think quickly this podcast is really going to be about, I've had a lot of firm owners ask, like, is it possible to run a firm on Zero? And so we wanted to bring Scott on to talk about, whether Zero works, are there any challenges in different industries or niches, or talk about Scott's journey, essentially. And also, we're going to have a teaser for you at the end of this podcast. So don't leave too early. And Scott's got something really exciting to share with us all.
That's amazing.
So let's get into it, Scott. Like, tell us your story. Did you start with, any other accounting software solutions, like Intuit, or did you just start on Zero when you started your firm?
Oh yeah, we had a proprietary write up software we were using at our firm at first, and then lots of clients on QuickBooks Desktop. This was around 2010. Um, Kind of like struggling through that, wading through options. I didn't really know cloud was an option. Around 2011, 2012, maybe when QuickBooks had an online option, I thought that would be the way. And I thought we were going to start using that. Turned out that was horrible. It was not a good alternative to our desktop or our write up solutions that we had. It wasn't until a client suggested Xero to me, and they found it on their own, and it was just like the sea parting when I found it. It was the first cloud solution, the only cloud solution that actually worked, but it worked differently than QuickBooks. There was a lot of things that were different about QuickBooks that I liked. It was clean, it was easy to use. There's a lot of things I could say, but it just changed everything about our firm. Once I found what it can do and how much it can automate, we went all in. We put pretty much all of our clients on it. I think this was like
So tell
2012,
us
2013.
Okay, tell us more about that because I know that Xero was one of the first cloud solutions out there. It was built in the cloud rather than adapted to the cloud from a desktop software. When you were looking at Xero, were there other comparable solutions that you were looking at, and what made you decide to go with Xero specifically?
Yeah, I wasn't even looking at comps. There may have been other cloud software, but it wasn't like I'm looking for a cloud solution. It was like, wow, we found this and it does better than anything we've ever used. Like the cache coding and how we could do a client's write up work in like an hour, like a whole year's worth of write up in like a couple hours. It was crazy. So it was just a game changer for us. That's the best way to put it. And
So you were an
so
early adopter like I was, and my story is very similar to yours. I had a client come to me with specific requirements. They were looking for a cloud GL, and number one, it could not be QBO. And I went through the same journey you did. And, 2014, I started evangelizing Xero, and I started hearing these questions pop up. Well, it doesn't do this, and it doesn't do this, and it doesn't do a bank rec, and it doesn't. How did you get past all of that? What was your thinking through all of those things that it didn't do versus what it did do?
Yeah. Well, I never saw it as not doing a bank rec. I saw it as doing a bank rec differently. I saw it
Exactly.
as this was a different kind of way to do a bank rec. It's almost like you're reconciling as you go. And I preferred that. Everything was just more effective, more efficient. It was easier to do. Um, and the fact that we could work with clients anywhere was just a bonus because most of our clients were local at the time. But it wasn't until we started getting clients from their directory that we really started growing. And we can get into that in a little bit. I think you want to talk about functionality. Functionality, it wasn't like I was comparing, well, QuickBooks does this and Xero does this. It was just, this is better. Like, this is different and this is easier. And it was just all very intuitive. And I always used to make the joke, like, Intuit has the name Intuit, but it wasn't very intuitive at the time. And Xero was. So it was like, and any client that we put on Xero, they didn't really care. We were doing the work. It wasn't like they were doing their books.
And that's exactly the story that the population needs to hear, that, these things do work. It's just different. And we know as accountants, overall, we hate change. But in this case, change was good.
Yeah, we were seeking out the change at the time, and we were seeking out new and different ways to do things because we had never seen anything like it before. And then when we start seeing all these other apps that worked with Xero, that again was more game changer. Like, this was like something new that you could have another app that's reading the information. All this API stuff was new. All of these apps working together. This was just, it was like a whole new beginning for our firm, and everything changed from that point forward.
I think that that aversion to change is what a lot of firm owners find difficult, and it's not just up to the firm owner, right? Because sometimes you go to a firm owner, they're like, "Yes, I'm all about this new software. It's great," but ultimately, it's the team who's doing the work. And so, if the team objects the change, then the whole project gets shut down, right? That you don't
Yep.
have an opportunity to move. So, is that something that you experience? Like, did your
I'm
team have
experiencing it
any
now.
objections? Okay.
I experience it now whenever I want to take on QuickBooks clients. They don't want to use anything but Xero. So they are very resistant to change now, and they have set their grooves, and their grooves are in place, and they don't want to change it. If I was dealing with this back then, we wouldn't be on Xero. I wasn't dealing with it back then because I didn't have that many employees. We didn't have any grooves set in place because it was just like the stuff we were doing wasn't that useful, wasn't that helpful. And now, if you compare Xero and QuickBooks, in my mind, I think that there's some advantages to putting some clients on QuickBooks. And my team says those advantages aren't that much greater than what we're doing in Xero. And it's not like that's going to be a game changer. It's not. Like, they're on a playing field that's similar at this point. I don't think that I could get them to switch over and do everything in QuickBooks unless I really incentivize them. And I don't know how or why I would even do that because what we're doing is working. So
So,
Okay.
it's
Tell us
funny you
more
asked
about
that. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
tell
I
us more
mean,
about the advantages that sorry, Jay.
no, I was going exactly there. And is it industry specific advantages
Yeah,
or,
yeah. So it's
yeah,
the advantages now are the same advantages that Xero had over QuickBooks. Back then, no apps worked with QuickBooks. They didn't have the open API, and all of these new apps in our space that were coming from, you know, the bubble of cloud, they only worked with Xero because they couldn't work with QuickBooks. Well, now we're seeing the opposite. I'm seeing new apps come out, really big game changer type apps that don't work with Xero because they don't want their developers working on the Xero because in the US, what, like 90 most accountants, 90% of accounts are using QuickBooks. So it's tough now. Now I've run into the exact opposite of what we were looking at 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, that is very true. And walking around the expo hall at Scaling New Heights, you, I would say half of the vendors that were there didn't even have Xero on their roadmap for that
Not
reason.
even on their roadmap anymore.
Yeah,
And it's sad to
yeah.
see that. So it was a different era. It was fun then, but now like we can't use live flow. We can't use digits. We can't use any like those are just two that come off the top of my head.
But LiveFlow has had Xero on the roadmap. Have they pushed it back? Or what's going on there?
Nah, I don't know. I don't ask
Yeah,
anymore.
I mean,
I don't
yeah,
ask anymore. But
it's
that's just
frustrating.
like it's only frustrating because it was the opposite. And I remember
Right.
clearly like when all
Yeah.
these new apps were only working with Xero. So that was one
Yeah.
of the advantages. But if we're going to go back to saying what are some of the other advantages, I think QuickBooks has worked out all of their problems with their online product. I think most of the issues that it had and the things that it couldn't do, if they didn't work it out themselves, then they have other tools like Right Tool or Uncat or some of these others that go in there and fix and clean up pretty much everything or allow you to do the things that you couldn't do in the past. So they've smoothed that over a little bit. So I think it's hard to compare the two now because you're going to run into like if they're side by side, then they can pretty much do the same things. Xero has always had the cash book and the cash coding and the things you can do for quick write up for a tax return. They've been doing that for 10 plus years. Intuit just announced that in QuickBooks Connect this past year, they just announced they're doing a cash book type ledger type client that you can do for write up just for the tax
Right.
return, a lower cost option. And their bank feeds are, they're about the same now, like they got
Yeah.
direct feeds too. So
Yep.
Well, that's
No,
a shout out
I
to
feel that.
Hector Garcia on the right tool,
Yeah.
right? Because that's not Intuit's product, that's Hector's
no, it's not.
product.
Yeah, that's
For
Hector.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, the software companies nowadays, especially because QuickBooks has such a large majority of the market, they kind of build into QuickBooks first. And, if we're lucky, we're also going to get the Xero integration as well. It's just going to come at a later time. So I think the other thing too is, so what are some of the major apps that you're integrating and using right now alongside Xero?
Yeah, I can think of our practice apps. Practice management like Carbon never used to work with Xero. I don't think it even needs to. So we have
Hmm.
something else that's kind of connecting. So we're using Ignition, and Ignition does have a great integration with Xero. And so Ignition will
Right.
push a work item to Carbon, and then it'll push all the financial information to Xero for our own books. So my own integration with Ignition, I'm very happy with. Honestly, I don't know what other integrations we're using because a lot of the stuff that we're doing, there's no integration with the tax software, which would be great. And there's Tally4 that we could be using. We haven't even started using anything like that yet. So we're still manually keying stuff in from Xero to the tax return.
Yeah. Tally
Um,
4 is game changer once you start
I
using
bet,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
bet it
sure.
is. And yeah, I mean we do use a lot of apps, but I'm trying to think of like the Xero integrations that we use, and it's not. I think I'm a little far removed now too. Like as I mentioned, I could do this podcast and all this rapping. I'm not in the day to day, so there might be some other ones, but it's like Go Cardless. I know is one that we set up, but Xero should be taking payments now. It should be doing all that embedded in there, and I thought they do. So I don't know. There's some things that we used to say Xero should work on the core product instead of acquiring all these other apps. They bought HubDoc. That used to be a really good integration, but after they bought them, it was like, what happened now? Is there still some embedded things that are happening? So I don't know. Xero does more than it did before. But yeah.
Yes, I don't know, Jay, if you have any knowledge around that. You're pretty close.
Uh, there might be some functionality coming down the pike at some point related to that. I mean, we've been waiting for that since that acquisition happened. But, in regards to what you're talking about, I know you were on Zero's Partner Advisory Council probably one or two terms after I was on there. And you talked about some of the things that made sense that we talked about at those sessions. What was your experience with that, and how did you find that?
Oh, that changed my life, man. I remember my first time at their office. You were at their office, though. You were like doing some consulting, working with them. But it might have been San Francisco or in Denver. But yeah, like it, just imagine like being in this, and you experienced this as well, Jay. So
Mm-hmm.
you're figuring all this, finding all this stuff on your own. Most other accountants that you talk to or know don't want anything to really do with the cloud, and they don't want to change what they're doing, just like you guys said. Really old school. My community of accountants that I had at the time, so old school. They were like, what's Xero? Where's Xero going to be? It was just like people questioning all of it. And then I come find these others in the partner council. I met Will Lopez. I met Nicole McKenzie. I met, everybody that, are household names now in the cloud accounting world.
Mm-hmm.
I met some of these people, and it was like, they thought just like me, and they were doing things differently just like me. And it was like I found, Amanda Aguilar says this a lot, I found my people. Right, once you find
Yep.
those people, the people that are like you and that can relate on all these levels, you're thinking differently in a world of accountants. It was amazing. And it spawned different, you know relationships and foundation. Like I say, that was my ground zero for everything else that I'm doing now. I wouldn't be doing all this other stuff if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. I mean, same here. I mean, it launched into, what I've been doing ever since. So my term on XPAC was shortened because I became an ambassador, and I
Mm.
was saddened by that, but also really excited. And while doing that, I've been able to put my hand on, like, at least 7 or 8 different features in Xero, and been able to help shape it. And I'm sure you have as well over that time, and given the feedback on what works, what doesn't work, and where they should focus. And sometimes they're so deep in their thoughts that they don't listen, but sometimes they really do. And those times when they do, I know my first XPAC meeting, I said we need to make this change, and at my last one, they showed it. It's like, oh wow, that I did that. I helped with that. It's so exciting.
Yeah, that's really like it's really impactful to say something and then actually have people listen to you and then implement it. Um, I remember it's still like to this day, like I see different things within Zero that I know we suggested in some of those meetings. The
Mm-hmm.
reporting is getting a lot better. Like we have much better reporting in Zero now than we did then, and that was
Oh,
some
for
of the only
sure.
things we talked about in those early days was
Yep.
to improve the reporting.
I think that software companies, it's tough to find the balance between innovating and bringing on new and exciting features that capture the attention of the market, right? Versus also improving the core product for existing customers. Like some of these new features, especially lately that Xero has been releasing, aren't super sexy, I guess you could say, but they're extremely functional and very much needed. And it seems like Xero is finally listening to its customers, right? Even David Larry and Blake Oliver talked about this in one of the recent episodes. Xero is releasing some new features based off of feature requests from the Xero community, like the product board, where you're able to
Yeah.
request features. So that's really, really exciting to see.
Yeah, Zero already has all of its sexy features. They don't need any more sexy features. They need more functional things and boring things that accountants are going to like.
Yeah.
I think the sexy was in the beginning. That was, being blue was different. That was sexy. Think about it. Like everything else was green and, similar or no color at all. And then you got Zero coming out here with this blue.
Guess that's
Yeah,
all it takes, right? Just a little bit of color change. You can
for
be
sure.
successful.
But going back to what you were saying, Tam, I've been working with Zero on Zero Inventory Plus since they bought Locate and this project has started. And at scaling, I did my presentation. And when I was doing a live demo, the product was different than it was 2 weeks before when I was actually making my slides. And, I talked to them and they're like, yeah, we're getting live feedback and we are applying it immediately. So they are listening to the customer, and it's great to see it because a lot of software companies don't do that. They develop from a plan and they don't deviate until either it goes off the rails or there's other issues that occur. So in this place, they're reaching out to the audience of e-commerce accountants that are using the platform, and they are just going to town making changes as we're going. Actually, I gave 4 suggestions while we were sitting there after going through the presentations I did. So, it's great that they're taking that feedback. And it's not just Zero Inventory Plus, they're doing it across the board now. So,
Well, and that was always one of the difference makers with Zero was they listened to the community and they asked
yeah.
questions, and that's why they had these advisor councils. Um, the XPAC,
Well,
yeah,
well, speaking of that, Zero is also in the communities, and they work with the firms as I want to say they're consultative. They're working with the owners, helping them grow their business. I mean, yes, it's their job to sell you Zero, but my experience always was they were doing that, but helping me grow my business along the way. Have you experienced that?
for sure. Yeah, I love the partner consultants. They would get us tickets for ZeroCon and encourage us to do those things. So that's how I even decided to go. They were like, "Yeah, we'll get you a couple tickets to
Yeah,
check out ZeroCon." And that was so much fun. I had never been to a conference before my first ZeroCon, so that was different. That was like another game changer too.
yeah,
Sure that they're there to sell, but I think they're also there to support. Um, that was different having somebody that was like your direct line. Granted, we've had probably 12 of them since. Like we get a new one almost every year, but they're always like engaging and ready, and they flew down here and they've taken us out to dinner and stuff, so it's just been good experience with our Zero reps.
Yeah.
yeah.
So for
You are
those
right,
listening
though.
who,
Yeah, go ahead, Tam.
sorry, who aren't familiar with partner consultants, I actually used to be a partner consultant for Zero, and basically partner consultants are just like solutions consultants and other software companies where they have, in this case, I think Zero did really well with this. They hired ex accountants, ex CPAs to come on who really understand the terminology, understand the accounting pains, who are experts in the Zero product and can help implement and manage the change management and all that stuff. And so they're just an extra resource that every Zero partner has access to. So it sounds like they were extremely beneficial to you, Scott.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely help shorten your journey from learning Zero to being an expert and utilizing it to build efficiencies. So, yeah,
That's
Yeah.
actually how I met Scott.
yeah,
That
Was
is how we
as a
met.
partner consultant. Yeah, it was at one of these Paget gatherings, and I was helping Paget adopt Zero accounting software, and that's how we met. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I got a lot of attention from Zero because of my affiliation. I think, in the beginning, I think that's probably what led to me being on the advisor council and them. I felt like I was being treated like royalty, but they also saw a big gold mine behind me with getting involved with Paget, which is what they did. And now there's like 2,000 orgs in Paget that are on Zero. So
Yeah.
might
Yeah,
be
those
200,
large
but I think it's 2,000. Yeah.
affiliations do help.
So, so for other firm owners who are potentially looking at Zero, can you tell them a little bit more about what kind of services you offer? What is the demographic of clients that you have? And, are you getting any pushback from clients, or is it relatively easy to onboard them to Zero?
Yeah. From Well, from my days when I was doing sales and when I was doing that, it's not about the pushback because we were getting clients that were already on Xero and their accountant wouldn't work with Xero. They were finding us through Xero's directory, and they were like, so they came to us knowing that we worked with Xero, knowing that we were experts. And so that was our vertical. That was our niche, was clients that are in this world using Xero. Sometimes a lot of them were businesses that existed out in other countries, in Europe, all the English speaking countries, and they would open up a branch in the US and they would commission us to help them get that unit set up their payroll there, and we do their accounting. So everything's on Xero. They didn't want to have to come here and go on QuickBooks and have two systems. That was one way that we were gaining a lot of clients. If we ever had a client come to us and say, yeah, I'm on QuickBooks, and I keep using that, like, why would they be hiring us in the first place? We were doing their books. So they didn't care most of the time people didn't care what tool we were using. And that was just like, we use this is this is the brand that we use for our GL. Nobody really cared, because of what we were doing. We were doing basic, cash basis, bookkeeping, accounting, write up, whatever you want to call it, for the tax return at the end of the year. And everybody that came to us, they were happy to work with us. They wanted to work with us. They didn't want to work with GL, I guess.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. The GL is the tool you're using. So, be most efficient in what you're doing and provide the clients what they need, which is,
but it really was different. And we were like, I always like being the different one, or the minority in a lot of these scenarios. So we knew Xero was a minority in the US, and we knew that not a lot of accountants used it. So it was to our advantage. That's why we have clients all over the country, and that's how we grew so fast, was because we picked up on the one thing that most accountants weren't doing. Most business owners, if they found Xero, it's because they were forward thinking at that time, and they were looking to the cloud, and they wanted a cloud option that worked. So we were finding like-minded clients too, clients that were like us, because we also found Xero. We were also looking to do something different. And so that it all kind of like worked seamlessly, almost like we didn't really run into any issues as we were growing and all of that, because everybody was aligned.
So earlier you mentioned the advisory directory that Xero has, and you were getting clients off of that. How did you leverage that, and how did you get so much activity on it?
Yeah, I hacked it. I would go in and we changed our clients' addresses so we would show up in different places. That was one thing that we did. Another one was we had, we would, well, the way we would do it, we would concentrate in areas that we wanted more clients. So we'd set up more addresses in that area. So then we would show up higher on the directory, and the leads would just pour in. Once we moved up to like top 3, top 2, top 3 in that area, the calls would just come in. When we were getting maybe 15, leads a week. It was inbound leads, all qualified people for the most part, and we shaped everything up around them. But yeah, most of I found out how the algorithm worked and how the directory worked, and I just made sure that we showed up in the places that we wanted to show up. I think that there's a lot of similarities in how it works, but the directory is a little bit more crowded now, so it's not as easy to just say we're going to move 5 orgs into this city and then we'll be first. Like, that's all it took. Once it used to be like we can move 1 org in this city, and then boom, we shot up to first in the list. Yeah. So it was just working with it, and I've worked with some of the developers in Australia to kind of understand how it worked, and it was probably some of the things we shouldn't be doing anymore, and we don't. But there were things that we were doing that we were hacking it too. I think that what we ended up doing and what we have now is a lot more sustainable. All of our addresses are right, but because we have so many clients in these cities that we were growing in, now we don't need to have different addresses in there. We just made sure our directory page looks good, clean, inviting, and when people do see it, they're more inclined to click and call us through the directory. And we duplicated that, and we did that again with Zen Payroll with Gusto in Gusto's directory. and you can't hack theirs, but we get a ton of leads from there now too. So everything we learned from Xero's, we're using in other directories. And part of the advantage of this was QuickBooks directory was so flooded. Every accountant and every advisor in every city is on QuickBooks directory. So we couldn't really compete there. But Xero, it wasn't too many accountants, especially back then.
No, for sure.
These are genius growth strategies. So one, go the road less traveled. And then the clients are just going to find you because they find the software and tool that they want to use, and they don't know any advisors who are using it, who are, using it as part of their tech stack. And then two, hack the directories. I don't know if any of these software companies are listening to this episode right now, but if they are,
But you all
hopefully
need
they
to.
don't change the algorithm, right?
Yes.
Well,
So-
and if they do change the algorithm, you have to learn what it's doing differently. Whenever they
Yeah.
change the algorithm, we would know because we would stop getting leads, and it was pretty instant. So, and again, these are the kind of things that you're putting your sign up, and that's your sign. That's
Yeah.
like that's your front door, right? So you got to make sure that it looks good and inviting so people walk in the door, because you want those inbound leads. You don't want to have to try and sell people. That's hard to do for an accountant.
Yeah, and what you said there is really important. When I was using this directory back in 2015, I was working out of my home, and it was using my home address, and it only had the firm address is what they were picking up. I'm like, we are cloud firms. We don't have a location.
That was a setting, and you can change the setting to be anywhere. Mm-hmm.
They added that setting, and it was game changer.
Yeah, and it was based on where your clients were located too,
Yep.
which was another huge game changer for us.
So going back to the first growth strategy, right? Like choosing a software system that a lot of other firms weren't using. Do you think that firms, if we were to start a brand new practice today and you were to go 100% Xero, that growth strategy would still work? Do you think that there are a lot of clients out there who are seeking out Xero firms to work with? Do you get clients that are coming in the door?
So our leads now, Xero is it used to be we would get the most leads from Xero, and now we don't get as many. And I think that's also because QuickBooks, the product is better. Obviously, like when the people were using Xero is because they didn't like Intuit for whatever reason. There's still a lot of people that don't like Intuit, but that's going to be the case with anything that's really massively popular. You get those people that don't like the popular one. They want to go against the grain, but there isn't as many of those now. I don't think, from my perspective, I think they're still out there, but more so the people that are coming from out of the country, and overseas. Xero is a lot bigger, so they have that pedigree, like coming from even UK. That we would get a lot more leads coming from there than we would within the US, I think. And firms starting off, again, using Xero it was our advantage because everything was just better. We liked the way they were doing it because it was different. It was also better for us. So I think that if you're somebody that's different and you like that, that's probably why you're going to gravitate towards something like Xero, because it still is modern and it still is a little bit more close to home when you can affect change there. I mean, then again, QuickBooks Intuit has their advisor councils now too, and they're listening to accountants a little bit more now because of Xero. I think everything that Intuit's doing is a result of Xero coming in. They woke Intuit up. Intuit was asleep at the wheel at the time.
Since 2013, that's been the story.
Yeah, but they're awake now, and they're hard to compete with. They've got the market.
Yeah,
but
they are a marketing machine.
Yeah, but back to your question, Tam. I thought that was going to be possible with FreshBooks. I thought if anything, people might be more inclined to use FreshBooks in the US. It's also got a slick blue, and it's also built in the cloud, and they're doing a lot more to beef up their GL to be more competitive with Xero and QuickBooks. I thought that would be one of the things that people could look at too, but my team wasn't interested in exploring that. I just thought that they had a lot of momentum possibly, and they do have a lot of clients, but it's just not the same type of clientele that would be using it. So I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, it's still a strategy. It works, right? Because Kate
Hmm.
Johnson, who is the
Yeah.
founder of the bookkeeping side hustle group on Facebook,
Hmm.
she specializes in FreshBooks, and her
Just
entire business is
FreshBooks.
built,
Yep.
yeah, built on FreshBooks, and it's working
Hmm.
for her. So
Yeah.
I think there's definitely something to it. Yeah,
A lot of that's
yeah,
market related, though. I mean, and it works, like you said. Just depends on the type of clients you're going for.
Hmm.
But you know that those clients that are out there, and I've firmly believed that QuickBooks is the Kleenex of accounting software. When you want a tissue, you ask for a Kleenex. People say, "I need to go get
Or
QuickBooks,"
Band-Aid. Yeah.
Mhm.
and it stuck to it until Xero breaks through that market completely. It's gonna hold true.
Hmm. Yeah.
So how about like future aspect? Like, what do you think the outlook is for Xero? Because we've talked a lot about how QuickBooks is actually caught up in many, many ways. And if you're a Xero firm already, the advantages don't like it doesn't make sense to go through change management, right? If you're comparing feature for feature, if you're a QuickBooks firm already, it doesn't make sense to move to Xero, and if you're a Xero firm already, it doesn't make sense to move to QuickBooks because they're so similar now.
Right.
Um, what would you say to firm owners who are considering Xero? Like,
I still think that there's an advantage to being Xero only and marketing to people who use Xero. I still think that there's enough people using Xero that you could leverage that, but you would have to go all in. And that's it was just the timing for me was perfect to go all in on that because I didn't want to use into it. So I think you have to make a decision because you should not be switching GLs from client to client. It's just the contrast from green to blue is not good on the eyes. You can't work in there for half a day and then go switch and do one client in another platform. Everything kind of looks different and it's just not easy for the accountant. And I'm empathetic with that. That's why we're not going to just start taking on any client that we can in QuickBooks. So I've kind of created this situation, and it was, it's funny because all the people that I meet now in this world that are advanced and that are forward thinking, forward looking, I'm not going to say all, but most are using QuickBooks at their firm. But go back 10 years, 8 years, and it was the opposite. You meet anybody that's forward looking, running a practice, looking forward, they were on that Xero train early on. So I think Xero would have to do something um, to really again, it's a tool that works very slick in the background, but they would have to do something that would be like game changing in the US to get a QuickBooks accountant to want to switch over. I think if that's the question for somebody to want to switch products and go all in on something like Xero, they would have to have a compelling like market or industry or niche that they go in. Like if you worked with overseas clients setting up their US systems, that was a niche that I wanted to explore a little bit further. You're going to find more people using Xero if you do that, and finding you using Xero if you market to the right people.
Totally
yeah,
makes sense.
those are fair points. Definitely. I wonder what they could possibly do, that could bring
Yes, what the
over
future
the
holds.
counts. Yeah.
So what the future holds is like specialization, right? So if Xero found some kind of real keen market specialization where it was the preferred GL for this industry and this industry, and that industry was using it, and you marketed it to that industry with Xero, like as co-branding and things like that, I think that could really work because what you're doing is creating something different in a market that probably has most people using QuickBooks, and maybe there's a feature that Xero would have or something that they do that's different, that's easier, that's better, that's a game changer. I think that's partnering and going into a specific industry could be, key to finding growth, or to getting more adoption.
There
Yeah.
you have it. Xero, I hope you're listening.
I
Jay,
mean,
did
I'm
you
sure
have
they
anything else,
know this
Scott?
though too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to use what Scott said there and do a slight segue to talk a little bit about ZeroCon.
Sure.
So Scott mentioned Zero, you know, maybe having an industrial uh, focus. Well, they're trying that, and we have Zero Inventory Plus in limited preview right now. And actually, I believe I will be talking about that at ZeroCon. I am so looking forward to it. We're a month away now, and I believe we are all going to be attending ZeroCon, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Gonna come
So,
hang out.
it's going to be my eighth. I've been to everyone in the U.S., and I'm really excited for it. But Scott, what excites you about ZeroCon? What are your greatest memories, or what are you looking forward
Oh, well, what I'm looking forward to this year is rapping at ZeroCon. I will
to?
be rapping on the main stage, opening up day 2. So definitely check that out. What I love about ZeroCon is what I love about any conference now, and it's the people there. So you get to see all your people all at once, all in the same city. And it's a new city each time, too. It's not like they're going to Vegas every single year. ZeroCon's never been in Vegas. It's always somewhere different, always somewhere exciting. You maybe have to deal with the elements and the weather. We've had some weird weather at ZeroCons in the past,
For
but that's
sure.
always fun because everybody's in it together. Like
Right.
everybody's wearing blankets if it's cold in Austin. So it's like, yeah, the community and that part of it. We go to I go to a lot of conferences now, but in the beginning, Zero was one of the only ones I was going to, so it's the one I look forward to every year. I still look forward to it immensely, but yeah, it's like one of the other conferences on the list of things that I'm doing now, and like you get to see everybody again. That's like I'm looking forward to the people. The content,
Yeah.
I don't remember. It doesn't stick out at me. Like the content itself never sticks out at any of these conferences. I can say Zero is always really slick about their stage presence and the people and the guests that they've had in the past. So I've liked that. I always like the vendor hall too. That's always
Yeah.
fun.
How about you, Tim? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I've always been, well, I mean, I worked at Xero for 4 to 5 years. So the funny thing is, I actually never went to a XeroCon while I was working at Xero. I actually didn't attend until I was working at Ramp as a vendor. And then this year I'm going as an independent. But I agree with Scott. I think it's all about the people, it's all about the presence, it's all about the vibe. And I've had an opportunity now to go to many accounting conferences in the last couple of years. I gotta say, Xero knows how to throw a party. They know how to do it. And then you
Yeah,
go
most
to the
definitely.
events and they have these booths. I mean, last year they had these booths set up so you could go get your hair done, you can get your nails done. They just make it a really fun event. So it's very interactive.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool stuff. Yeah, that's really
for
dope.
sure. Now, Scott, you have something special for us, correct?
I do. I do. So I've been working hard on this. This this was something that I pitched to Zero. Um, and I said I would love to rap at ZeroCon. Sent an email. They sent back. They said, "Oh wow, we would love to have." And they took to it like seriously. They were like, "Yes." And so then it was my job. After they said yes, I was like, "Oh wow, now I actually have to write this rap." So what you're gonna see here is I did a hybrid. So all my raps are okay remixes of original songs, right? And this one I took 2 songs and I blended them together because they kind of fit the theme. I don't want to give anything away, but I'll say the first one was a cannabis song, the rapper Cannabis this was from the 90s. It was called Channel Zero. And the second one, I won't give it away yet. I'll play it and you'll see it blend in. You probably should recognize that it's more modern. So yeah. And here goes.
Approximately 18 years ago, under the direction of New Zealand's Raj Drury and in the interest of computer security, a single unified ledger, Accounting 2.0, was established. This tool's primary objective was to decentralize accounting and spread this software as a service model across our planet, connected by a global network of remote services called the cloud.
We in the cloud with Zero. We in the cloud with Zero.
We in the cloud with Xero. 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 Yo, this new cloud accounting tool woke into it to bestow an evolution, a beautiful blue tech solution. Xero showed the masses what an app was with cache coding to shatter the globe's reliance on desktop as we know it. I'm talking about the grand invention around 2007 when Xero would grow out of New Zealand for technologically advanced tenants, simple finance, safe program, and browser-based sessions. 2012 had lots of skeptics, and the mobile version of our domestic desktop was pathetic. You can reject it for its soothing blue aesthetic and fail to recognize the beauty inside these debits. A very high percentage of accountants in our nation, green console worshiping desktop applications. For more construction of on-site server, pricey installations, redundant ongoing IT maintenance. They gave us real-time information, can take place in several different team locations. Unlimited seats and easy collaboration. For ecosystem customization, choose your own software applications. Cause through application programming interfaces, they create integrations, two-step secure authentication, national Xero ambassadors, people like Liz Mason, they speak and teach and made certifications. They're trying to free Western civilization from green domination. Well, you need to know that they changed the game. Cloud-based safe space with a beautiful interface. We in the cloud with Xero.
Sorry, Jay, your name didn't rhyme like Liz's did.
That's all good.
We in the cloud with Xero.
That's awesome.
We at war. We at war with old ledgers and IRS agents. But most of all, we at war with broken bank connections. Xero works. Rod showed me the way because this ledger connects bank accounts. Xero works. To side hustlers, biz owners, accountants, tax preparers, even bookkeepers. Xero works for them. To the outsourced controllers, fractional CFOs, moms working from home. Xero works for them. Not Z, it's XC. Bank feeds sync cleanly. Xero keeps me and my team mostly green free, cause desktops almost nearly extinct. We cash code clients so fast we don't blink. I ain't here to argue about new QBO features or here to convert atheists into believers. I'm just trying to say the way these books need keepers, the way Blake really needs Leary, that's the way I need Xero. So here goes my keynote, dog. We need more heroes. They say you can rap about anything except for Xero. That means funds, tax, finance, AI automate. But if I adopt cloud tech, my desktop won't integrate, huh? Well, if this really machine learning, it'll probably automate my month ends. Then the weeks turn to days to seconds and integrate everything in the cloud. Let's go XeroCon, everybody scream it out. Xero works. Rod, show me the way because this ledger connects bank accounts. Xero works. The only thing that I pray is bank feeds don't fail me now.
That is
Heyo!
awesome.
That's a great sneak peek into the actual live performance. Scott's going to be opening on day 2, if you missed that, at XeroCon. So super excited to see that. Thanks for sharing that with us.
If you don't have a ticket, Google right now, XeroCon 2024 Nashville. Check it out, buy a ticket, and show up and see that live. That's going to be awesome. I can't wait.
See OKR live. He's been preparing
Yes.
for this.
Can't wait. Well,
All right. Well, awesome.
this has been a awesome 3/4 of an hour. Great catching up with you, Scott, and appreciate you joining us and giving some knowledge on Xero and the history that you've had. That's been a fun run down memory lane for me, for sure.
Well, thank you both so very much for having me on and letting me share this new rep that I've been working on. I love the feedback. I saw some smiles in there. You got some of the lines, so it's dope.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I'm looking forward to it. So any parting words, Sam?
No, thank you all so much. I mean, this has been a fun session, and next time we'll see each other will be at XeroCon, and hope to see any listeners who are here still with us there at XeroCon as well.
Yeah. And go check out Accounting High too. Go subscribe on YouTube and the podcast. If you're still listening now, go check that out. I got some more cool raps and stuff like that there.
And
he's got some great
productions out there
productions.
for you.
Definitely check it out. Yeah.
Well, have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we will catch you next time. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Tim. We out.